Yeah, so we're going to talk about InDesign a little bit, wrap up more about InDesign, what this program does. So up until this point, what we've dealt with was putting in text in multiple pages and how we lay out multiple pages within InDesign. But one of the things I have not shown is images. And the first day, what I've dealt with or what I've talked about is that when you put in InDesign, everything is in a box. And that goes with images as well. So there is a certain way of putting in images or graphics or anything like that. And we're going to talk about that today. So what I have up here, again, I have Adobe Illustrator, which if you can see right here, I have Adobe Illustrator up, and you can see that I've created a logo within it. All right. So the logo is a vector logo, and it's right here. You can see with all the graphics and how it basically creates that path around it. All right. So you'll know with Illustrator, it's a vector graphic. It can scale to any size. What I also have is Photoshop open, and it has that same logo in it, but I put in a drop shadow. And if you remember, the checkerboard pattern refers to as kind of like a transparent void. There's nothing there. So what we have is a drop shadow that's a little bit transparent around it, and that is going to come into play when we deal with InDesign. So I'm going to go ahead here, and I'm going to actually talk about one other thing, or I'm going to basically save it as a JPEG, put it on my desktop, save it, hit that. All right, so I'm going to minimize Photoshop and I'm going to minimize Illustrator. I'm going to go back to InDesign. All right, so what I have here is, if you see on my desktop, you'll notice that I have a Photoshop file, I have an Illustrator file, I have this bald eagle file, and I also have a JPEG of the same logo that's there. So in order to get any kind of graphics within InDesign, you cannot open them. All right, so this is one of the most common hurdles that many people do when they have to deal with InDesign is they instantly think of it. All right, I can go to File and Open and put the element into my document. Well, that's false. In InDesign, there is no way of opening. You're going to run into an error. It's not going to even be able to be open. So what we have to do in order to place any kind of imagery in is you have to go to File and Place. So you're going to go File, and you're going to find the option of Place. When you hit Place, what you're going to do is you're going to find here is you're going to go ahead and guide yourself to where you are going to find the imagery. And you'll see I have a lot of stuff on here. But I want to find my graphics. So I got logo JPEG, logo PSD, and I should have the bald eagle there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on the bald eagle. I'm going to hit open, and you'll see that my cursor turns into a little preview of that graphic. Now it's not placed in there yet, but there are two ways of actually putting this in. The first way is to just go in here and just click. All right, when you click in there, like, oh my gosh, it is really big. It's like all I see is a little corner of it. That doesn't give you very much control as far as how you're going to put it in. So I'm going to go to Edit, Undo, so I can get back to my cursor like this. And I'm going to go, instead of just clicking, I'm going to go ahead and click, hold, drag. And what that's going to allow me to do is place in the imagery, but it's going to place it in its certain size. So as you can see here, I've got the graphic in there. Now, the one thing, if you remember at the very beginning, I said everything is in a box. All right, everything that's in InDesign has to be in some kind of container. As you can see, I've got the graphic here, and it is in a container. Let's find out. So with my black arrow, what I'm going to do is you're going to instantly think, okay, I want to scale this. I don't want it that size. I want it to be smaller or bigger or whatever you want to do. So you're thinking, okay, let's go to a corner. This is the same as Illustrator, Photoshop. I'm going to hold down Shift, grab that corner, click, hold, drag, let go, and I'm thinking, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? Well, because what it has is there is basically, it's a container. The container has an image that is inside that container. So think of it like a fruit bowl. The fruit bowl is the container that's holding the fruit. The picture is referred to as kind of like that fruit. All right. You make the bowl smaller, fruit doesn't get any smaller with it. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to make that image smaller. So there are, just to kind of dissect what's going on here, when you see a blue outline around the photo, that is the actual container that it's in. So when you grab a corner and you make it smaller, all you're doing is changing the window or changing the container what size it is. The image inside does not change. Now, if I were to double click on it, you'll see that the outline turns into a brown outline. When you see a brown outline, that means you are actually working with the image inside the container. So when I go to grab a corner and I click hold drag, you'll see that the image gets smaller, but the container does not. So how do we deal with that? How do we change the container and the picture at the same time? Well, for many of us, it's like for a lot of us who've been using the program for a long time, we know that if you click on the container and you hold Shift Control, or I believe it's Shift Command on a Mac, and you grab a corner, click hold drag, it'll scale both the container and the image at the same time. If you're new to InDesign, you can simply go over to one of your toolboxes or tool. Halfway down, you're going to find, like underneath the scissors here, you'll find a box with an arrow in it. It's called the Free Transform tool. If you click on that and you go to a corner, hold down Shift, click hold drag, you'll notice that it does scale both the container and the image at the same time. So that is basically how you would do that. So you've got the container, you've got the image as well that you're trying to scale. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to delete that for a moment. I'm going to go up to File and I'm going to Place, because I want to show that there is a distinct difference between what we deal with as far as Illustrator and Photoshop and InDesign and how this all works. So I'm going to choose logo.ai. I'm going to place this in. So I'm going to click hold drag. So that's my graphic in there. I'm going to do the same thing, File, Place. I'm going to go find my other logo, it's JPEG, and click hold drag, about the same size. Deselect that, I'm going to go File, Place, and I'm going to find my logo.psd, and I click hold drag. Alright, so I got those in here, just like that. And what we want to do is I'm going to show you what the difference is. One of the most powerful things within InDesign is that you have the capability of actually importing a native Illustrator.ai file, and you can also import a Photoshop.psd file into your document. This is important because what it can do is it allows you to include some kind of like layered elements into your document. So what am I talking about here? Well, here's the difference. I'm going to take a rectangle. I'm going to make it encompass the whole area. And I'm going to fill it with, let's say, a dark red. Hit OK. All right, so it's basically bigger than all the elements are in there. So if I go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back, you notice that there is a difference here. All right, this is the Illustrator file. This is the Photoshop file. This is the JPEG. The JPEG for a long time until InDesign was able to came out with this capability is that everything had to be imported as a JPEG or a TIFF or something else. But what it lacked was a transparent element into your graphics. So as you can see, JPEGs do not support transparency. So you see that you get a white box around everything. Photoshop files do support transparency. So you get the transparent drop shadow that is also basically see-through. So I can move these anywhere, and you can kind of see that there's that transition happening between the white and that red in that drop shadow. That's important to know, that that gives us the capability of doing whatever we want. Before, if you wanted to do something like that and overlay it, you had to create it in Photoshop, then bring it into whatever page layout program you wanted in order to actually have that work the way you wanted it to. All right. So what we also want to look at too is that you may be looking at the Illustrator file and thinking, oh my gosh, that looks horrible. And zoom in and you can see that it's all rigid and it's pixelated and it looks horrible. Okay? This is why InDesign can support a 120-page catalog, because what it's doing is not embedding graphics into the document. Instead, what it's doing is it's linking to the document on the outside. So like here, this file here is on the outside. So if I wanted to actually see this at its full resolution, you can actually right click on it and go down to the very bottom, and you'll see that there's an option called Display Performance. If I choose, you'll see that there is a fast display, typical display, and high quality display. If I choose fast display, it will just do a gray box, which is going to be its lowest resolution possible. If I go to typical display, this is what it actually comes in at by default. It's a typical display. Now if I right click it and hit high quality display, then you'll see it at its full resolution. So one of the questions that may come up is that, what if you have a typical display, and will it print like that? That's what I hear often. The answer is no. It will not print at that low resolution. It is actually coming, when it's embedded in, or when it's placed in here and it's set that typical display, it'll actually look at the original file but when it's printing, and it will bring in its full resolution as it's printing it. So you don't have to worry too much as far as how it looks here. This just gives you an impression of the layout for it. So right here, what we can do is, just to give you an idea of what we have going on here. If you go to Window and you go to Links, what that's going to bring up is the link palette, which actually has like the three graphics that we have in here: the .ai, the .jpeg, and the .psd. All right, so what we have here is these ones have the page numbers there where it's linking to, and that's what we have. That's basically, it's all linking. Now, if I were to go to my particular document here where it's .ai, and I just rename it, say logo 32, and hit return, I come back here, you'll notice that there is a red circle with a question mark in it. That means that the link has been broken. It is gone. It's like that file that it's linking to is no longer there. So to answer that question back when we said, is it going to print in high quality? Well, in this case, if it has that red circle, it will not print in high quality. It will print just like this, because it has no file to actually reference to. So any files you embed in here need to stay intact. They need to come with the document when we work with them. So how do we relink it? So let's say we did break it and we have this red circle with the question mark in it. How do we relink it? Well, at the bottom of the palette, you're going to find that there is a chain link. It says relink. If I go ahead and click on that, you'll see I can go ahead and try and find that file, or even if it's renamed something, like right now it's logo 32, I can click on that, hit open, and it will go ahead and relink it to that particular file. All right. Another option through the links palette is another powerful thing that actually is done within this, is that we can actually edit from the source. So if it's logo32.ai file, if I hit this little pencil icon, it says edit original, and I click on that, it will launch the file in its native program. Like if it's a .ai, it will launch it in Illustrator. If it's a .psd, it will launch it in Photoshop. So here, let's say we want to go ahead and change the color to something different. Let's say we go to a blue color. And I hit OK. It's there. And I go ahead and hit Save, let's say, and come back to InDesign, and you'll notice that it automatically updates that to work. So let's say I go from Illustrator, and I'm going to update this color again, and say purple. All right, and I go ahead and hit Save, and I go back to InDesign. You'll notice that it didn't change the purple because I did not hit that little pencil icon when I did it. But you'll notice that there is a yellow triangle. A yellow triangle means that the file has been modified outside of InDesign. So if you want to update that, you can click it, and you'll see that there's the circle arrow thing, like a recycle button. If I hit the update link, that's what it's called, hit update link, and it'll go ahead and update that to reflect what that color was or what that update was. So now it is purple. Okay. All right. So that is what it is. You have to understand that you have to link graphics from InDesign and put them together. So one of the questions is, what if you have these graphics all over the computer and you need to basically get this prepared for the printer? Printer's going to want the InDesign file, but it's also going to want all the fonts. It's going to want all the graphics. So it seems like, oh my gosh, that's going to be a very daunting task, especially if you have a 120-page catalog and you have over 500 images into the document, which can happen. So how do you go ahead and collect all those, especially if they were all over your computer? Well, InDesign has a built-in utility that will allow you to actually collect all that stuff without you having to do any of it. So first you have to save it. So I'm going to go ahead and save as. Go to my desktop. I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to go up to File, and I'm going to go to Package. Now Package will allow me to go ahead and have InDesign go ahead and collect all that stuff for you. So like here, the summary gives you a brief summary of everything that's in here. If I go to fonts, you'll see that there's any fonts, but we didn't type anything, so there won't be any fonts there. But there are links and images. You'll notice that there are 3 images here that are there that I need to go ahead and collect. So colors and inks, which are CMYK, and print settings. And if there's any external plugins, it will look at those too. So I simply have to go ahead and hit Package. And then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to drop this on my desktop and hit OK. And there I am. If I go up to this folder and I open it, you'll notice that I have a .pdf file, which will generate an automatic PDF, INDD, which is the native InDesign file. It'll have an IDML file, which is a file that will allow you to open it up in past versions of InDesign. That's important because if you are working with a client that has an updated version of InDesign and you don't, they have to send that to. Or vice versa, they maybe want to update that, but they have a past version of InDesign. You can send them that too. And it has a links folder, so if I click on that, you'll notice that all 3 of my graphics are there. That will work. All right, so that's pretty much it. That's a wrap for this bootcamp sessions. So the next video will be talking about the graphic design theories. And we'll go ahead and start with projects for this one. And other than that, have a great day.